Layla sat on the edge of the riverbank, her small hands carefully threading flowers into a crown. The sun dipped low, casting gold and orange across the rippling water. She could hear the soft rustling of leaves in the trees and the distant chatter of birds returning home. It was a quiet evening, the kind that made everything feel like it could last forever. Beside her, a boy of her age sat cross-legged, carefully balancing a small stick across the sand. His dark eyes sparkled with mischief and his hair fell in untidy waves across his forehead. "Layla," he said, finally looking at her, "one day I will marry you." Layla laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're just a boy," she said, her voice teasing.
"How can you promise such a thing?"
He grinned, a determined gleam in his eyes. "Because I know I will. I promise," he said, holding out his small hand. "Right here by this river, I swear I will marry you someday." She hesitated, then took his hand, feeling the roughness of his fingers against hers. "A promise?" she asked. "Yes, a promise," he said seriously. "Even if we grow up and live in different places, I will come back for you. I promise, Layla." The sun sank further and the sky turned shades of pink and purple. They sat together in silence for a moment, the river's gentle flow carrying away their words into the quiet evening. It was a promise neither of them could fully understand, but it felt important. Somehow it felt like a secret bond, one that would last forever. Over the years, the promise stayed in Layla's heart. She would think of it sometimes when she walked through the village, carrying baskets of fresh vegetables or helping her mother in the house. She wondered what the boy was doing, if he still remembered the promise they had made as children. But life moved on. Children grew, responsibilities appeared, and the riverbank that once felt like a world of its own became a memory tucked away in her mind. Layla's life was quiet, but happy. Her days were filled with small tasks, her family, and the friends of the village. Yet the memory of that promise sometimes crept into her thoughts, usually when the sky was painted with the colors of evening or when the river shimmered under the moonlight. She would whisper to herself, "Did he really mean it? Will he come back?" One morning, as Layla helped her mother arrange flowers for the village festival, she felt a strange sense of anticipation. She couldn't explain it, but something deep in her heart stirred, as though a memory long hidden was calling her attention. She shook her head and smiled. "It's just a dream," she told herself. Nothing more. Days passed, each one a little routine of work and care. Layla would often walk along the river, her thoughts drifting to that boy who had promised her a future. She remembered his laughter, the way he had looked at her seriously while making the promise, and the small wooden charm he had tied around his neck, a simple necklace with a tiny river stone. The necklace had been a gift, he had said, to remind him of her and of the promise they had made. Layla had treasured it for a time, but then it was lost, swept away by a careless hand or perhaps by fate itself. Still, the memory of it lingered stronger than any material thing. One afternoon, as she walked to the river carrying a basket of fruits, Layla noticed a boy leaning against a tree, sketching in a small notebook. His features were unfamiliar, but there was something about the way he looked up from the page that made her pause. He smiled politely, and Layla felt a strange sense of familiarity she couldn't explain. "Hello?" he said softly. "Are you heading to the river?" Layla nodded, feeling a little nervous. "Yes, the river. It's beautiful this time of year." He glanced at the water, then back at her. "It is. I come here sometimes to think." They walked together in silence for a few moments, each of them feeling the quiet comfort of the river and the rustling trees. Layla noticed a small charm around his neck, a river stone shining softly in the sunlight. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? The boy noticed her staring and tilted his head slightly. "Do you know this?" he asked, holding the charm in his hand. Layla's eyes widened. She took a careful step closer. It looks like the one my childhood friend had," she whispered. The boy nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "That's because it is. I've been searching for you all these years. I had to make sure. I had to keep my promise." Layla's mind spun. Could it really be him? The boy who had promised her marriage so long ago? She studied his face, searching for signs, for the features she remembered. And then she remembered. The mischievous grin, the determined eyes, the way he had held her hand by the river. "It's been years," she said softly, almost to herself. "Years have passed." "I know," he said. But some promises, they are not meant to be broken. Not by time, not by distance. The river flowed gently beside them, carrying their words into the quiet air. Layla felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Could she trust him? Could she believe that the boy from her childhood had truly returned, keeping the promise he had made under the old tree by the river? As the sun dipped lower, painting the water with shades of gold, Layla realized that life was about to change. She didn't yet know how, but the memory of that promise, combined with the boy standing before her, created a spark she had never expected. It was a spark that might grow into something powerful, something that could shape their lives forever. The boy held out his hand again, just as he had all those years ago. "Layla," he said gently, "will you believe me? Will you trust me?" Layla looked at his hand, at the familiar charm, and then into his eyes. She remembered the laughter, the river, the promise. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she placed her hand in his. "Yes," she whispered. "I will trust you." The river flowed quietly around them, as if witnessing the silent agreement of hearts reunited after years of waiting. The village faded into the background, leaving only the two of them, bound by a promise made long ago and a hope that had never truly faded. And in that quiet moment, Layla realized that sometimes childhood promises were more than just words. They could be a force strong enough to bring people together again, no matter how many years had passed. The morning sun shone softly over Layla's small house, painting the walls with gentle shades of gold. She hummed a quiet tune as she carried water from the well, her movements careful and steady. Life had always been simple for her, filled with chores, family, and the occasional moments of quiet reflection by the river. But today, a strange unease seemed to linger in the air. Layla shook her head, trying to ignore the feeling. "It's just the wind," she muttered. "Nothing more." She set the bucket down and moved inside to sweep the floor. The broom scratched softly across the wooden planks, and the familiar rhythm calmed her nerves. Yet as she worked, she couldn't shake the sense that something or someone was approaching. A knock at the door broke her concentration. It was a firm, deliberate knock, the kind that made her stop mid-sweep. "Who could that be?" she whispered, her heart fluttering unexpectedly. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked cautiously to the door. When she opened it, a stranger stood there. He was tall and well-built, with features that seemed both unfamiliar and strangely familiar. His dark eyes held a calm intensity, and around his neck hung a simple necklace, a small stone shining in the sunlight. Layla froze. Her breath caught in her throat. That necklace, it was exactly like the one her childhood friend had worn years ago. I'm sorry to disturb you," the stranger said softly, "but I was told you might know me." Layla blinked, unsure what to say. Her heart pounded as she stared at him, searching for some hint, some sign that could tell her who he really was. I don't know," she stammered. He smiled faintly, a mixture of nervousness and determination. "I think you do," he said. "We met a long time ago. By the river." The words sent a shiver down her spine. The river, the boy, the promise. Could it really be him? She took a cautious step back, uncertainty and curiosity battling within her. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm someone who made a promise to you many years ago," he replied. "A promise I intend to keep." Layla's mind raced. Could it really be true? Could the boy who had promised her marriage as a child truly have returned? And after all these years, and why now? The stranger shifted slightly, careful not to seem threatening, yet confident enough to draw her attention. "I know this may seem sudden," he said, "but some promises, they do not fade. Not with time, not with distance." Layla's eyes fell to the necklace again. The riverstone glinted in the sunlight, and memories came rushing back. Childhood laughter, shared secrets, the solemn promise made under the old tree by the river. She swallowed hard, unsure if she wanted to believe or to retreat to the safety of her home. "Years have passed," she said softly. "We are no longer children." He nodded. "I know, we have grown. But some things, some promises, are meant to be kept no matter how long it takes." For a moment, silence hung between them. The gentle rustle of leaves outside the door, the distant calls of the villagers, and the quiet hum of daily life seemed to fade away. It was as if the world itself had paused to let this meeting happen. Layla's heart pounded. She wanted to ask him so many questions. How did he find her? Why did he return now? Could she trust him? But her voice seemed trapped in her throat. She only managed a small, trembling, "Why?" The stranger's eyes softened. "Because I remembered," he said simply. "I remembered the promise, the river, the laughter. And I could not forget, not for a single day." Her hands trembled slightly as she reached out toward the necklace, almost as if touching it could confirm the truth.
Is it really you?
She whispered. He took a small step forward and gently held her hand, the same way he had all those years ago by the river. "It is me," he said quietly. "I have waited all these years to find you again, to make things right." Layla's mind raced, memories of childhood flooding her thoughts, the games they had played, the secrets they had shared, the way he had looked at her with determination that only a child could have, yet so serious, so real. She remembered the warmth, the promise, the hope that had never fully left her heart. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, I can't believe it. I never thought." "You thought I would forget," he said gently. "But some promises, they stay with us forever." The stranger stepped closer, careful to respect her space, but close enough that she could feel the sincerity in his presence. Layla studied his face, trying to reconcile the boy she had known with the man standing before her. Time had changed him, yet somehow, the essence remained. The same eyes, the same smile, the same determination. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers from her garden, mingling with the distant sound of the river. It was as if the world around them had conspired to create this moment. Layla felt a flicker of hope, but also a cautious fear. Could she truly trust him? Could the boy from her memories be the man who now stood before her? "I don't know if I should believe you," she admitted, her voice trembling. "It's been so long. What if it's just a trick?" He shook his head gently. "It's not a trick. Look at this," he said, holding out the necklace for her to see. "Do you remember it?" Layla's eyes widened. The river stone glinted softly, catching the morning light. She reached out and touched it, feeling a strange warmth as if it carried a memory of its own. "Yes," she whispered. "I remember. Everything." The stranger smiled, relief and joy mingling in his expression. "Then you know me," he said. "You know I would not lie about something so important." Layla took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her mind spun with questions, doubts, and memories. Yet beneath it all, a spark of hope ignited. A feeling she thought she had lost years ago. Perhaps, just perhaps, the promise had been true all along. For a moment they stood in silence, two souls connected by a bond forged long ago. The riverstone glinted in the sunlight, a symbol of memories and promises that had endured the test of time. Finally, Layla spoke, her voice soft but certain. "If you are truly the one who promised, then show me. Prove to me that you have kept that promise." The stranger nodded. "I will," he said. "But not with words alone. Actions speak louder than promises. I have come to be part of your life again, to show you that some things are stronger than time." Layla studied him, her heart a mixture of hope and caution. She did not yet fully understand the path ahead, but she knew one thing. Her life had changed the moment he appeared at her door. The morning light grew brighter, illuminating the small house, the garden, and the stranger standing on the threshold. It was a new beginning, one that carried the weight of the past and the promise of the future. Layla felt a strange certainty deep within her heart. This was no ordinary meeting. Something important was about to unfold. The stranger took a small step back, giving her space yet keeping the connection alive. "I have waited for this moment," he said quietly. "And I will wait as long as it takes, as long as you allow me." Layla nodded slowly, her mind and heart slowly opening to the possibility that some promises were never forgotten, never broken, and sometimes, just sometimes, they led to something extraordinary. She looked down at the necklace again, her fingers brushing the smooth riverstone. A memory of laughter, the river and the promise came rushing back stronger than ever. And with it, the realization that the past and present were now intertwined in ways she could not yet understand. The stranger's presence was a reminder that time could pass. Seasons could change, but some bonds remained unbroken. Layla felt her heart stir with a cautious hope, knowing that the next chapter of her life was about to begin, and that the promise made years ago might finally be fulfilled. The wind whispered through the trees outside, carrying the faint scent of flowers and the soft hum of the village. And in that quiet moment, Layla realized that some promises were not just words. They were a force capable of reshaping lives, of bringing people back together, and of creating hope that could not be extinguished. The stranger waited patiently on Layla's doorstep as she stepped back inside, unsure what to do next. Her heart was a mixture of fear, hope, and curiosity, each emotion competing for attention. The necklace gleamed softly around his neck, catching the morning sunlight. It was more than just a charm. It was a key to memories long buried and promises not yet fulfilled. "Please," he said gently, noticing her hesitation. "May I come in? There is much I need to tell you." Layla bit her lip, glancing toward the small table where a kettle and cups were neatly arranged. Something inside her told her that this was no ordinary visitor, no random stranger. There was a familiarity in his eyes, a weight in his words, and a sincerity in his expression that she could not ignore. She nodded slowly. "All right, come in." He stepped inside carefully, his movements calm and deliberate. The house smelled faintly of herbs and flowers, the scent comforting to her senses. Layla led him to a small table near the window and motioned for him to sit. "I will not lie to you," he began, his voice steady. "I know this must be overwhelming. You might have questions, doubts, fears, I understand. But everything I tell you now is true." Layla took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Then tell me everything," she said softly. He nodded. "You remember me as a boy, don't you? The boy who promised you a future by the river." She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I remember. I never forgot that day. For that promise." "I never forgot either," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "But life took me far away. I had responsibilities, challenges, and duties that kept me from returning. But not a day passed without thoughts of you, without remembering that promise." Layla listened, her mind turning over his words. Could it really be true? Could the boy who had promised her marriage years ago be standing here, telling her he had thought of her all this time? The idea seemed almost impossible, yet every word, every gesture felt genuine. "I traveled," he continued. "I had to learn, to grow, to become someone capable of keeping my promise. It was not easy. There were times I wondered if I would ever find you again, but I never stopped searching. And now I have found you." Layla's fingers fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. "But why now? Why return after so many years?" He smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and longing in his expression. "Because the right time has come. Because I could not wait any longer. Because some promises are too important to delay." The silence between them was heavy but comfortable, like the calm before a storm. Outside, the village moved on with its usual rhythm. Children laughing in the streets, merchants calling out their goods, the distant clatter of carts on cobblestone paths. But inside, time seemed suspended, held by the weight of words and memories. "You speak as though nothing has changed," Layla said softly. "But life has moved on. We have grown. Are you sure? We can still—" Her voice faltered. "I am sure," he said firmly. "Time has changed us, yes, but it has not broken the bond we shared. The promise we made, it has endured. And now we have a chance to honor it." She studied him carefully. His presence was calm, reassuring, yet there was a quiet strength in him, a sense of purpose that could not be denied. "And this necklace?" she asked, pointing. "It is a reminder," he said, "of that day, of that promise, of you. I wear it always so that I do not forget. And now I bring it to you, to show that my intentions have never wavered." Layla's eyes softened. She remembered the boy's hands, small and rough from work and play, holding hers as he had sworn the promise. She remembered the river, the laughter, the innocence of childhood. And now standing here, the man before her carried the same sincerity, the same devotion. "Years ago," she began quietly, "you promised me a future. But life has changed me. I am not the same girl you knew. And I am not the same boy," he replied gently. "We have both grown. But some things, the heart, the soul, the truth of a promise, those do not change with time. They endure even when we do not see them." Layla's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to believe him, to trust in the words that seemed to reach straight into her heart. But caution, learned over years of living, whispered in her mind, "How can one trust so easily after so much time?" "I need to know," she said finally, her voice steadying. "I need to understand who you have become, what life has brought you, and why you have returned." He nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Then I will tell you everything. I will not hide a single detail. I traveled to distant lands, learned new skills, faced challenges that tested me in ways I never imagined. But through it all, I kept your promise close to my heart, and when I finally realized that the world had grown too vast, too busy to keep me away, I came back. To you." The weight of his words pressed upon Layla, and her heart felt both heavy and light at the same time. She wanted to believe him completely, to let go of her doubts and fears, but the years had taught her patience. She needed proof, actions, not just words. "I believe your words," she said cautiously, "but promises, they must be proven." "Actions speak louder than words," he smiled, understanding in his eyes. "I will prove it. I will not just speak. I will show you every day that my promise is true." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of flowers and the distant sound of the river. The air seemed charged, as if nature itself recognized the significance of this meeting. Layla took a deep breath. She could feel the spark of hope growing inside her, tentative yet persistent. "Then, tell me more," she said softly. "Tell me about everything you have done and how you have kept your promise." And so he began to speak, recounting tales of distant lands, challenges faced and lessons learned. He spoke of nights under foreign skies, of storms weathered and obstacles overcome, and through it all the promise to her remained the guiding light, the reason he had endured. As he spoke, Layla listened, her mind filling with images of his journey, his struggles, and his unwavering devotion. She realized that the boy who had promised her marriage was no longer a child. He had become a man of courage, determination, and integrity. A man who had not forgotten her, who had not abandoned the promise that had shaped both of their lives. Hours passed, yet they seemed like minutes. Layla felt a mixture of awe, admiration, and a cautious hope. Could it be possible that this man, who had traveled so far and endured so much, had truly returned for her? Could the bond they shared as children still hold meaning in the world of grown-ups, responsibilities, and distance? Finally, the stranger paused, looking at her with quiet intensity. "I have told you my story," he said. "I have shared my journey. But the most important thing is this. I am here. I have returned. And I will stay if you allow me." Layla's fingers brushed the riverstone again, feeling the connection to her past, to the promise, and to the man who now stood before her. Her heart stirred with emotions she had not felt in years: hope, longing, trust, and the thrill of possibilities yet to unfold. Then, "We will see," she said softly, a small smile forming on her lips. "We will see if promises made long ago can truly endure." The stranger nodded, a quiet joy in his expression. "We will," he said. "And I promise, Layla, I will not let you down." Outside, the sun began its descent, painting the village in warm shades of orange and gold. The river sparkled in the fading light, carrying memories of laughter, childhood promises, and the hope of a future yet to be written. For the first time in years, Layla felt a sense of possibility. She knew that the path ahead might be challenging, that life might test their bond once more. But for now, she allowed herself to believe that some promises, no matter how long forgotten, could indeed be honored. And in that quiet sunlit room, a childhood promise began to unfold into a story of trust, hope, and the enduring power of a bond that had survived the passage of time. The days that followed were filled with quiet tension and cautious hope. Layla and the stranger, whose name she finally learned was Armin, spent hours talking, walking along the river, and revisiting memories of their childhood. Yet even as the air between them grew warmer, a subtle unease lingered. Questions remained unanswered, and the weight of years apart pressed heavily upon both of them. Armin tried to reassure her. "I understand your doubts," he said one evening as they sat by the riverbank. The water shimmered under the soft glow of the setting sun. "I would feel the same way if I were in your place. Trust is something earned, not demanded." Layla nodded slowly. "It's not just about trust," she admitted. "It's about knowing that the person I knew, the boy who promised me marriage, is truly the same man who stands before me, that he has kept that promise not just in words but in actions." Armin smiled gently. "Then I will show you. I will not ask you to believe blindly. I will prove it every day in every way I can." For the first time, Layla felt a spark of something she had almost forgotten: hope. But hope alone was not enough. She needed to see the truth in his actions, to witness that the bond they shared had survived the years apart and had matured into something real and lasting. Over the next few days, Armin immersed himself in Layla's life, helping with chores, assisting in the garden, and learning the small routines that shaped her days. He was careful and respectful, never overstepping boundaries, but his presence was comforting, steady, and genuine. One morning, as Layla prepared breakfast, Armin joined her in the kitchen. "Let me help," he offered, carefully slicing vegetables for the stew. Layla hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But don't make a mess," she teased, smiling despite herself. He chuckled, a sound that reminded her of childhood laughter. "I promise I will be careful," he said. "Just like I promised that day by the river." The simplicity of the moment, the sunlight streaming through the window, the scent of herbs in the air, the warmth of shared work, made Layla's heart swell. She realized that trust could grow slowly, nurtured through small, consistent actions. Later that day, Armin took Layla to the old tree by the river, the place where their childhood promise had been made. The tree had grown taller, its branches stretching high into the sky, yet the spot beneath it remained the same. "This is where it all began," he said softly. "Do you remember?" Layla nodded, her fingers brushing the rough bark. "I remember," she whispered. "I remember everything. The laughter, the games, the promise, and I remember too," Armin said, placing the small river stone in her hand. "I carried this with me all these years. Not as a toy, but as a symbol. A view of our promise, of my determination to keep it." Tears welled in Layla's eyes. The necklace, so simple yet so meaningful, represented more than childhood memories. It was proof of a bond that had endured the test of time. But even as her heart softened, a flicker of doubt remained. "Armin," she asked carefully, "what if life changes us again? What if challenges come that test this bond?" He took a deep breath, his expression serious. "Then we face them together," he said. "Promises are not just words. They are actions, choices, and sacrifices. I am ready to make those choices, to face those challenges, and I will not let the years apart undo what we shared." Layla felt the weight of his words, realizing that he understood the depth of commitment required. It was not enough to speak. It was necessary to live the promise day by day. The next morning, as the village woke to the sounds of life, Armin accompanied Layla to the market. Together they carried baskets of fruits and vegetables, greeting neighbors and friends. The villagers noticed the bond between them, subtle yet undeniable, and whispered among themselves about the return of the boy who had made a promise long ago. During their walk, Armin gently guided Layla to a small stall selling handcrafted jewelry. "I want to add something to this necklace," he said. "A reminder not only of the past, but of the future we can build together." Layla raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "A future?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said with a smile. "A future where promises are honored, where trust grows, and where we walk together as partners, not just in memories but in life itself." She studied him carefully, noting the sincerity in his eyes, the quiet strength in his words. It was clear that he had not returned merely to relive the past. He had returned to build something lasting, something real. Over the following days, Layla began to see the depth of his dedication. Armin helped her with household tasks, repaired small things around the house, and even assisted her mother in preparing for the upcoming village festival. Each act, small yet meaningful, demonstrated his commitment. One afternoon, as they rested by the river after a long walk, Layla finally allowed herself to voice the fear she had held quietly for so long. "Armin," she said softly, "I want to believe in this promise, but I am afraid that life might test us in ways we cannot control." He took her hand gently, his eyes meeting hers with unwavering determination. "I cannot promise that life will be easy," he said, "but I can promise that I will not abandon you, that I will face every challenge with you, that I will honor the promise I made years ago, in every way I can." Layla felt a warmth in her chest, a flicker of hope that grew stronger with every word, every gesture, every act of care. She realized that trust was not instantaneous. It was built, nurtured, and proven over time, and Armin was proving it every single day. As the festival approached, Layla and Armin worked side by side, preparing decorations, cooking, and organizing games for the villagers. Their bond strengthened with each passing day, and the villagers began to notice the quiet joy that seemed to surround them. On the eve of the festival, they sat together by the river, the sky painted with hues of orange and purple. Layla placed her hand on the riverstone necklace, feeling the connection to her past and to the man who had returned to honor a promise. Armin, she said softly, I think I am ready to believe. Not just in the promise, but in us, in what we can build together. He smiled, relief and joy evident in his expression. Then we begin a new chapter, he said gently. One where we create our own memories, face challenges together, and honor the promise not just as children, but as the people we have become. The river sparkled under the setting sun, carrying their words into the quiet night. Layla felt a sense of peace she had not experienced in years, a mixture of hope, trust, and anticipation. The past had brought them together, and now the future awaited, full of possibilities. For the first time, she understood that promises were not merely words spoken in innocence. They were choices, actions and commitments that could shape lives. And Armin had proven in ways both small and profound that he was willing to honor that promise no matter the cost. As night fell over the village, Layla and Armin walked home hand in hand, the river flowing gently beside them. The stars began to appear in the sky, each one a reminder of the vastness of the world and the endurance of hope. Layla realized that life might continue to test them. The challenges and uncertainties awaited, but for now she allowed herself to trust, to believe, to hope. The promise of childhood had survived years of separation, doubts, and uncertainty, and now, standing on the threshold of a future filled with possibilities, Layla knew that some bonds were stronger than time itself. The morning sun rose over the village, casting a warm golden light on the streets and fields. Birds chirped joyfully, and the distant laughter of children filled the air. It was the day of the village festival, a day of celebration, music, and togetherness. But for Layla, this day held a deeper meaning. She stood by the window of her small house, looking at the river glimmering in the sunlight. Her heart was full, a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and hope. After weeks of spending time with Armin, of sharing stories, tasks, and quiet moments, she had finally allowed herself to trust fully. The promise that had seemed distant, almost impossible, had now become real. Armin appeared at the doorway, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked along the riverbank. His eyes lit up when he saw her, and his smile held the warmth of someone who had waited a lifetime for this moment. Good morning, he said softly, stepping inside. Are you ready for the day? Layla smiled, her nerves easing in his presence. I think I am, she replied. It feels different this year. Better. That's because this year is special, Armin said gently, not because of the festival, but because we are here together, ready to embrace whatever comes next. She nodded, feeling a sense of certainty she had not felt in years. I trust you, she said simply. I believe in the promise. Armin's smile widened and he held out his hand. Then let us go, he said. Together. They walked through the village streets, the lively sounds of the festival surrounding them. Stalls lined the paths filled with fruits, sweets, handmade crafts, and colorful decorations. Children ran around laughing, and villagers greeted them warmly, noticing the bond that had grown between Layla and Armin. As they approached the riverbank, where the festival's main events were held, Layla felt a flutter of anticipation. The place where her childhood promise had been made, and where their bond had begun to grow again, seemed almost magical under the morning sun. Armin guided her to a quiet spot near the old tree, the one where the promise had been spoken so many years ago. He placed the small riverstone necklace in her hand once again, the familiar weight and smooth texture grounding her in the present while connecting her to the past. Layla, he said softly, this day is not just a celebration of the village. It is a celebration of what we have found, of promises kept, and of a future we can build together. Her eyes glistened as she held the necklace close. It feels like a dream, she whispered. Like something I thought I had lost forever. You didn't lose it, Armin replied. You only had to wait. And now it is time to embrace it fully. For a moment they stood in silence, the river flowing gently beside them, the breeze whispering through the leaves. The village festival continued around them, but their world had become smaller, focused entirely on the bond that had endured time, distance, and uncertainty. Then, with a gentle smile, Armin knelt before Layla. He held her hands in his and looked into her eyes with unwavering determination. Layla, he said, years ago I promised you that I would return, that I would honor our promise. Today I want to make another promise, a promise for the future. Will you walk with me not just in memory but in life itself? Will you allow me to be your partner, your friend, your companion in all that is yet to come? Tears welled in Layla's eyes, but this time they were tears of joy, of relief, and of hope fulfilled. She saw in him the boy who had made the promise, the man who had honored it, and the partner who would face the future with her by his side. "Yes," she whispered, her voice steady despite the flood of emotion. "I will. I trust you. I believe in us." A soft breeze carried their words into the morning air, as if the river and the trees themselves were witnesses to this union of hearts. Armand smiled and gently lifted her hands, placing the small necklace around her neck, securing it carefully. "To remind us," he said softly, "of where we began and the journey we have shared. A promise kept, a future waiting." Layla held the necklace, feeling its smooth surface against her skin. She realized that it was more than a charm. It was a symbol of endurance, love, and the power of faith in promises. She had waited, and now the wait was over. The festival around them carried on with music, laughter, and celebration. Villagers danced, played games, and shared meals, unaware that a quiet, personal celebration had taken place beneath the old tree by the river. Layla and Armin walked hand in hand, their steps light, hearts full, and minds united. They shared stories of their journeys, laughed at small memories, and even made plans for the days ahead. Life, with its uncertainties and challenges, no longer felt daunting. Together, they could face anything, as the sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow over the village. Layla looked at Armin and realized something profound. Promises were not just words spoken in innocence, they were actions, choices, and commitments. And when nurtured with care, patience, and love, they could shape lives in ways beyond imagination. Armand looked at her, noticing the quiet determination in her eyes. "We have come a long way," he said softly. "From a promise by the river to this day, we have grown, learned, and endured. And yet here we are, ready to face the future together." Layla smiled, squeezing his hand gently. "Yes," she said. "Here we are. And now nothing else matters but the life we choose to build together." Hours passed, the festival continuing around them, but for Layla and Armin, the world had become a place of promise fulfilled. They explored the village, visited familiar places from their childhood, and even helped some of the villagers with small tasks, their bond visible to all. By evening, the sky was painted with shades of orange and purple, the river reflecting the colors like a mirror. Layla and Armin returned to the old tree, now resting beneath its protective branches. She leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his presence, the reassurance of his promise, and the certainty of their shared future. "Armin," she said softly, "I never imagined that a promise from childhood could mean so much, that it could shape my life so completely." "It can," he replied gently. "If kept with honesty, patience, and care, promises have a power that time cannot diminish. They connect hearts, guide paths, and sometimes bring us back to exactly where we are meant to be." Layla rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. She realized that the journey had not been easy, but every challenge, every doubt, every lonely day had led them here, to this moment of fulfillment, trust, and love. The stars began to appear in the night sky, twinkling softly above the river. Layla looked up, feeling a sense of peace she had never known. The past, with its promises and memories, had led her to the present. And now the future awaited, full of possibilities, adventures, and shared dreams. Armand lifted her chin gently, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together. And whatever challenges arise, we will overcome them, because promises, when honored, are stronger than time itself." Layla nodded, feeling a deep warmth in her heart. "Together," she said. "Always together." The river flowed quietly beside them, carrying their whispered words, their laughter, and their shared dreams into the night. The village celebrated around them, unaware of the personal triumph and promise fulfilled beneath the old tree. But Layla and Armin knew the truth. Time had tested them. Life had challenged them, and yet their bond had endured. As they sat beneath the tree, hands intertwined and hearts united, Layla realized that some promises were more than childhood games. They were the foundation for a lifetime. And when kept with courage, honesty, and love, they could transform lives in ways unimaginable. The riverstone necklace glimmered softly around her neck, a symbol of memory, endurance, and the unbroken promise that had brought them together. And for the first time in years, Layla felt complete, whole, and ready to embrace the future with the person who had waited for her, kept his word, and honored the promise that had begun all those years ago by the river. Together, beneath the old tree, Layla and Armand looked at the stars, the river, and the village. Their journey was far from over, but the promise that had once seemed distant and impossible had now been fulfilled. And with it, a new story began, one of trust, hope, love, and a future built on the strength of a promise kept.